Rachel opened her front door to find a bleeding bobcat collapsed on her porch, a motionless kitten pressed against her dying body. What her albino cat did next would defy everything wildlife experts thought they knew about the boundaries between domestic and wild. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go. The morning sun cast golden rays across the quiet residential street in Boulder, Colorado, painting the modest craftsman-style homes in warm amber light. It was the kind of peaceful Saturday morning that made people forget the wild Rocky Mountain wilderness began just 3 miles from their doorsteps. Rachel Morrison stood in her kitchen, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air as she gazed out the window at her small garden, mentally planning which herbs needed harvesting. At 37, she had finally found the peace she'd been seeking when she left her high-stress corporate job in Denver 2 years ago. Her life now revolved around simpler things: her freelance graphic design work, her vegetable garden, and her beloved albino cat, Ghost. Ghost was an unusual creature, even by cat standards. Pure white, from nose to tail, with striking pink eyes that seemed to glow in certain light, he had been abandoned as a kitten at the animal shelter where Rachel had been volunteering. Most potential adopters had passed him by, unnerved by his appearance or concerned about the health issues that sometimes accompanied albinism. But Rachel had seen beyond the unusual exterior to the gentle, intelligent soul within. Over the past 3 years, Ghost had proven to be the most intuitive and empathetic animal she'd ever known, seeming to sense her moods before she even recognized them herself. This particular morning, Ghost was behaving strangely. Instead of his usual routine of demanding breakfast while weaving between Rachel's legs, he sat perfectly still by the front door, his body tense and his pink eyes fixed on something beyond the heavy oak barrier. His tail twitched in that particular way that indicated he was processing something significant, something that demanded his complete attention. Rachel noticed his unusual behavior as she carried her coffee cup toward the living room. "Ghost, what's gotten into you?" she called softly. But the cat didn't even flick an ear in acknowledgement. This was so unlike him that Rachel felt a small flutter of concern. She set down her coffee and walked toward the door, intending to peer through the small window to see what had captured his attention. But before she could reach it, a sound stopped her cold. It was unlike anything she had ever heard, a low, guttural moan that seemed to carry equal parts pain and desperation. It came from just beyond her front door, from her porch. Rachel's heart began to race as her mind cycled through possibilities. An injured person? An animal? Her neighborhood was safe, but the proximity to wilderness meant wildlife encounters weren't unheard of. Just last month, her neighbor had found a family of raccoons nesting in his attic. Ghost made a sound then, not his usual meow, but something deeper, more urgent. He began pawing at the door with increasing insistence, his claws making soft scratching sounds against the wood. Rachel had never seen him behave this way. Her hand hesitated on the doorknob as another sound joined the first. A weak, almost imperceptible mewing, like the cry of a very young, very distressed kitten. Every instinct told her to be cautious, to perhaps call animal control before opening the door to an unknown situation. But something in Ghost's behavior, the way he seemed to be communicating an urgent need rather than fear or aggression, made her reconsider. She'd learned to trust her unusual cat's instincts. Taking a deep breath, Rachel slowly turned the handle and pulled the door open just a crack, keeping her body behind it as a precaution. The sight that greeted her made her gasp audibly, her hand flying to her mouth in shock. Collapsed on her welcome mat was a full-grown bobcat, its beautiful tawny coat marked with the distinctive spots and striped legs that identified its species. But this was no healthy wild predator. The animal was clearly in distress, her sides heaving with labored breathing, her eyes glazed with exhaustion and pain. A deep gash across her shoulder oozed blood, staining the wooden planks of the porch a dark crimson. But what truly made Rachel's heart clench was the tiny, motionless form pressed against the bobcat's belly. A kitten no more than a few weeks old lay completely still, its spotted fur barely rising and falling with shallow breaths. The mother bobcat had positioned herself protectively around the kit. Even in her weakened state, her body curved to shield the tiny creature from harm. As Rachel stood frozen in the doorway, trying to process the impossible scene before her, the mother bobcat's eyes found hers. In that gaze, Rachel saw something that transcended species barriers. It was the look of a mother who had exhausted every option, who had traveled beyond the point of her own survival, driven by a desperation that only parenthood could create. The bobcat had somehow made it through suburban streets, past dogs and cars and countless other dangers, to collapse at this specific door. Before Rachel could even begin to formulate a plan, Ghost did something that would change everything. Instead of hissing or retreating as any sensible house cat would do when faced with a wild predator, he stepped through Rachel's legs and out onto the porch. Rachel reached for him instinctively, fear for her beloved pet flooding through her, but Ghost moved with purpose and certainty. He approached the collapsed bobcat with slow, deliberate steps, his body language neither threatening nor afraid. It was something else entirely, something Rachel had never witnessed before. The bobcat's eyes tracked Ghost's approach, but she made no move to defend herself or her kitten. She simply watched, as if recognizing something in this strange white cat that defied all natural laws of predator and prey. Ghost stopped about a foot away from the wild feline, sat down, and did something that made Rachel's breath catch in her throat. He began to purr, loud and steady, a sound that in the feline world meant comfort, safety, and acceptance. Then Ghost looked back at Rachel, his pink eyes holding hers with an intensity that communicated as clearly as words. Help them. Rachel's mind raced through a dozen scenarios in the span of seconds. She should call animal control. She should call wildlife services. She should definitely not approach a wild predator, injured or not. But even as these logical thoughts cycled through her consciousness, her body was already moving. Years of watching nature documentaries and her brief volunteer work at the animal shelter had taught her that time was often the difference between life and death in situations like this. The bobcat was losing blood. Her breathing was becoming more shallow with each passing moment, and the kitten hadn't moved at all since Rachel had opened the door. "Stay there, Ghost," Rachel commanded, though she had no real expectation that her cat would obey. She hurried back into the house, her mind cataloging what she would need: towels, first aid supplies, water, a box or carrier. Her hands shook slightly as she grabbed an armful of clean towels from the linen closet, then diverted to the bathroom for her first aid kit. It was designed for humans, but surely the basics would translate. She filled a bowl with water and grabbed the large pet carrier she'd used to bring Ghost home from the shelter 3 years ago. When she returned to the porch, the scene had barely changed, except that Ghost had moved slightly closer to the bobcat, his purring still audible even from where Rachel stood. The mother bobcat's eyes were now half closed, her strength clearly fading. Rachel knew she had to act fast, but approaching a wild animal, especially an apex predator protecting its young, was dangerous even under the best circumstances. Rachel set her supplies down carefully and spoke in a soft, steady voice, the same tone she used with Ghost when he was frightened or upset. "Hey there, Mama. I know you're scared and hurt, but I want to help you. I'm going to help your baby too. Just stay calm for me, okay?" She had no idea if her words meant anything to the wild creature, but the act of speaking seemed to calm her own racing heart. She noticed that the bobcat's injured shoulder was the source of most of the blood loss. The wound looked like it might have come from another predator, perhaps a territorial dispute with another bobcat or even a mountain lion. Whatever had caused it, the gash was deep and would need professional attention. But first, she needed to stop the bleeding. Moving with deliberate slowness, Rachel knelt down about 3 feet from the bobcat, close enough to reach her, but far enough to retreat if needed. She held up a towel so the animal could see it, then inched forward. The bobcat's eyes opened wider, tracking her movement, but the creature was too weak to do much more than watch. Rachel's heart hammered against her ribs as she gently pressed the towel against the bleeding shoulder. The bobcat flinched but didn't strike out. Instead, she made a soft sound, almost like a sigh, as if she understood that this human was trying to help rather than harm. Rachel maintained steady pressure on the wound, using her free hand to reach for her phone. She needed professional help, and she needed it fast. She pulled up her contacts and found the number for Dr. Chen, the veterinarian who had treated Ghost when he'd eaten something that disagreed with him last year. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Boulder Animal Clinic, this is Dr. Chen speaking. Rachel, is that you?" The caller ID must have displayed her name. "Dr. Chen, I need your help urgently. I have an injured bobcat on my front porch with an unconscious kitten. The mother is bleeding badly from a shoulder wound, and I think she's going into shock." Rachel surprised herself with how steady her voice sounded despite her internal panic. There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. "Rachel, did you say a bobcat? As in a wild bobcat?" "Yes, she collapsed at my door with her kitten. I know I should probably call wildlife services, but I don't think she has time. She's losing too much blood." Dr. Chen's voice became all business, the tone of a professional shifting into emergency mode. "Keep pressure on that wound. I'm going to call the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Emergency Line. They have protocols for this. But Rachel, I'm coming over. I'm only 10 minutes away. Do not try to move her yourself. Wild animals can be unpredictable even when they appear docile." "Hurry, please," Rachel said, her voice finally cracking with emotion. "There's a kitten too, and it's not moving. I think it might be dying. I'm already in my car. Keep both of them as calm and still as possible. I'll bring everything I need." As Rachel ended the call, she became aware of Ghost's continued presence. Her albino cat had positioned himself near the bobcat's head, and remarkably, the wild feline seemed to find comfort in his presence. Ghost's purring had taken on a rhythmic quality, almost like a meditation soundtrack, and Rachel could swear the bobcat's breathing had steadied slightly since Ghost had approached. The tiny kitten remained motionless against its mother's belly, and Rachel's heart ached at the sight. She couldn't tell if the little one was breathing. Very carefully, keeping one hand on the mother's wound, Rachel reached toward the kitten with her other hand. The mother bobcat's eyes opened wider, watching intently, but she didn't growl or attempt to bite. Rachel's fingers made contact with the kitten's small body. It was warm, which she took as a good sign, but when she felt for a heartbeat, it was faint and irregular. The kitten was alive, but barely. She withdrew her hand and refocused on keeping pressure on the mother's wound, all while keeping up a steady stream of comforting words. "You're going to be okay. Help is coming. You did so good, Mama. You found help for your baby. Just hold on a little longer." Time seemed to stretch impossibly as Rachel knelt there on her porch, her knees beginning to ache against the hard wood, her arms trembling from maintaining pressure on the wound. Ghost remained steadfast in his vigil, occasionally reaching out with one white paw to gently touch the bobcat's face as if offering reassurance that transcended species and domestication. Finally, after what felt like hours, but had probably been only 8 minutes, Rachel heard the sound of a vehicle pulling up fast in front of her house. Car doors slammed, and Dr. Chen appeared at the bottom of her porch steps, an emergency medical kit in hand and a look of amazement on his face. Dr. Michael Chen had practiced veterinary medicine for 15 years, treating everything from hamsters to horses, but he had never treated a wild bobcat. As he approached Rachel's porch, his professional training warred with his natural caution. Behind him, Two wildlife officers from Colorado Parks and Wildlife emerged from their truck, moving with the careful efficiency of people accustomed to dealing with unpredictable situations. "Rachel, I'm going to need you to slowly back away," Dr. Chen said, his voice calm but authoritative. "The wildlife officers will need to assess the situation and determine if it's safe to proceed." His eyes took in the scene before him: the injured bobcat, the motionless kitten, the blood staining the porch, and most surprisingly, the white cat sitting calmly beside the wild predator, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. Officer Jennifer Martinez, a woman in her early 40s with sharp eyes and weather-worn hands, stepped forward with a tranquilizer rifle held in a ready but non-threatening position. Her partner, Officer David Kumar, carried medical supplies and what looked like specialized animal handling equipment. Both officers had seen their share of wildlife emergencies, but the expressions on their faces suggested this situation was unusual, even by their standards. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Martinez with Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Can you tell me exactly what happened here?" Jennifer's voice was professional but not unkind as she assessed the scene from a safe distance. Rachel, still maintaining pressure on the bobcat's wound, spoke without taking her eyes off the injured animal. "I opened my door about 15 minutes ago and found her collapsed here with her kitten. She has a deep laceration on her shoulder that's been bleeding heavily. The kitten appears to be unconscious, or worse. I don't know how she got here or why she chose my porch, but she's dying if we don't do something." Officer Kumar moved to the side, getting a better angle to observe the animals. "The mother is definitely in distress, blood loss and probable shock." He paused, his eyes narrowing. "That wound pattern looks like it could be from a mountain lion attack. We've had reports of an aggressive male lion in the foothills over the past week. He might have driven her out of her territory." Dr. Chen had been slowly moving closer during this exchange, his medical bag held ready. "Jennifer, if we're going to save her, we need to act now. I can stabilize her here, but she'll need to be transported to the Wildlife Rehabilitation Facility in Golden, and that kitten needs immediate attention." Jennifer Martinez had made hundreds of decisions in the field, weighing risk against necessity, protocol against compassion. She looked at the bobcat, at the tiny, motionless kitten, at Rachel's determined face and the bizarrely calm white cat, and made her call. "Dave, get the stretcher and restraints ready. Dr. Chen, you're cleared to provide emergency care. We'll tranquilize if she shows any aggression, but given her condition, I don't think that'll be necessary." She lowered her rifle slightly but kept it accessible. Rachel finally allowed herself to ease back as Dr. Chen took her place, his experienced hands replacing hers on the blood-soaked towel. His examination was swift and thorough, checking the bobcat's vital signs with an efficiency that came from years of practice. Pulse is weak and rapid, respiration shallow. She's definitely in shock. Body temperature is dropping. He pulled supplies from his kit, working quickly to clean and properly dress the wound. "I'm going to start an IV line to get fluids into her. That's the priority right now." As Dr. Chen worked, Officer Kumar approached the kitten, using a small pen light to check its condition. "This little one is in bad shape. Severe dehydration, possible hypothermia. I can barely detect a pulse." He looked up at Dr. Chen. "Doc, if we're going to save this kid, it needs warmth and fluids immediately." Ghost, who had maintained his vigil throughout all the commotion, suddenly moved. Before anyone could react, the white cat carefully picked up the bobcat kitten by the scruff of its neck, the way a mother cat would carry her young. Rachel gasped, certain the wild mother would attack, but the bobcat simply watched with glazed eyes as Ghost gently carried her baby toward the open door of Rachel's house. "What is that cat doing?" Officer Martinez asked, her professional composure cracking slightly at the surreal sight. Rachel understood immediately. Ghost was doing what came naturally to him, providing the care he instinctively knew the kitten needed. She stood up quickly, her legs protesting after kneeling for so long. He's taking the kitten inside where it's warm. Ghost has always had incredible instincts. I think he knows the baby needs help urgently. Dr. Chen looked up from his work on the mother bobcat. Rachel, if your cat has taken the kitten inside, that might actually be helpful. Hypothermic animals need gradual warming. Just don't let Ghost hurt it, even accidentally. And someone needs to attempt feeding it if it regains consciousness. I'll go with her, Officer Kumar volunteered. We need to keep that kitten under observation anyway. If it survives, it'll need to stay with its mother once she's stabilized. Breaking that bond could be fatal for a kit this young. Rachel led Officer Kumar into her house, following the sound of Ghost's distinctive purr. They found him in her bedroom, where a patch of morning sunlight streamed through the window, creating a warm golden rectangle on the floor. Ghost had placed the tiny bobcat kitten directly in this sun patch and had curled his white body around it, sharing his warmth, while his purring created gentle vibrations that seemed to stimulate the kit's breathing. Officer Kumar knelt down to examine the kitten more closely, his movements careful not to disturb Ghost's ministrations. Your cat is providing exactly the right care. The warmth, the stimulation from purring, even the position he's chosen. It's remarkable. He looked up at Rachel with new respect in his eyes. How long have you had this cat? 3 years. I adopted him from the shelter. He's always been special, but I've never seen him do anything like this. Kumar pulled out a specialized bottle and formula from his emergency kit. If this kitten shows signs of consciousness, we'll need to try feeding it. At this age, they typically nurse every 2 to 3 hours. Given its condition, it's probably been without food for at least 12 hours, maybe longer. Outside, Dr. Chen had successfully started the IV line and was monitoring the mother bobcat's vital signs with cautious optimism. Her bleeding has stopped and her vitals are stabilizing slightly. The fluids are helping, but she needs surgery to properly repair this wound, and she needs it soon. He looked at Officer Martinez. How long to get her to the rehabilitation facility? 25 minutes if we leave now, Martinez replied, already pulling out her radio to alert the facility. But I've never transported a bobcat with this much awareness. Even injured, they can be dangerous in close quarters. As if responding to their concern, the bobcat's eyes closed completely and her body relaxed. The stress, blood loss, and exhaustion had finally overwhelmed her system, sending her into unconsciousness. Dr. Chen checked her pulse immediately. She's stable but unconscious. This actually makes transport safer. Let's move quickly while we have the advantage. Within minutes, the officers had carefully secured the mother bobcat on a specialized stretcher designed for wildlife transport. Her limp body was strapped down with padded restraints that would prevent injury during the drive, while allowing Dr. Chen to monitor her vitals. The veterinarian climbed into the back of the Wildlife Services truck with his patient, his experienced hands already checking the IV line and adjusting the flow rate of the fluids. Inside Rachel's house, Officer Kumar was witnessing something he would later describe as the most unusual animal behavior he'd seen in 12 years with Wildlife Services. Ghost remained curled protectively around the bobcat kitten, his white body a stark contrast to the spotted tan fur of the wild baby. The albino cat's purring had not ceased, creating a constant rumble that seemed to resonate through the tiny kit's body. And then, as Kumar and Rachel watched in amazed silence, the impossible happened. The kitten's eyes fluttered open. They were the distinctive blue of very young felines, unfocused and cloudy, but open nonetheless. A tiny pink tongue emerged, and the kit made a sound, barely more than a whisper of a meow, but unmistakably alive and conscious. Rachel felt tears spring to her eyes. She hadn't realized how much she'd feared the worst until relief flooded through her. Officer Kumar moved with practiced efficiency, preparing the specialized feeding bottle. His movements were precise as he tested the temperature of the formula on his wrist, ensuring it was body temperature, neither too hot nor too cold. "All right, little one, let's see if you're interested in eating," Kumar said softly, approaching the sun patch where Ghost continued his vigil. The white cat looked up at the officer with those striking pink eyes, and Kumar could have sworn the animal understood exactly what was about to happen. Ghost adjusted his position slightly, making room for Kumar to access the kitten, while maintaining the warmth and security of his curved body. Kumar offered the bottle's nipple to the kit, gently touching it to the tiny mouth. At first, there was no response, and Rachel held her breath. Then, driven by instinct as old as life itself, the kitten latched onto the nipple and began to suckle. The pulls were weak and irregular, but they were there. The kit was feeding. "Good baby, that's it," Kumar encouraged, his voice taking on the gentle tone usually reserved for human infants. "You're doing great. Keep going." He glanced up at Rachel, who had knelt down beside them. "This is a very good sign. If it's feeding, it means its basic functions are intact. Dehydration and hunger are things we can treat." He paused as the kitten continued its halting feeding. "The bigger concern will be separation from its mother. Kits this young, I'd estimate 3 to 4 weeks old, are entirely dependent on maternal care. How long will they have to be separated?" Rachel asked, her eyes not leaving the tiny creature as it struggled to take in the life-giving formula. "That depends entirely on how the mother's surgery goes and how quickly she recovers. Best case scenario, maybe 48 to 72 hours. But rehabilitation facilities have had success with temporary fostering situations when mothers are incapacitated. They use heat lamps, bottle feeding schedules, and simulate maternal grooming to maintain the kit's health until reunification. What if the mother doesn't make it? The question hung heavy in the air, the possibility neither wanted to consider, but both knew was real. Kumar sighed, continuing to support the bottle as the kitten fed. Then this kit becomes an orphan and its chances of survival drop significantly. Bobcat kits need months of maternal teaching to learn hunting skills, territorial behavior, and survival instincts. Hand-raised wildcats can survive in captivity, but they can rarely be successfully released back into the wild. They're stuck in a limbo between wild and domestic, belonging fully to neither world. Ghost shifted slightly, and Kumar noticed something remarkable. The white cat had begun grooming the bobcat kitten, his rough tongue licking the kit's head in slow, methodical strokes, exactly as a mother cat would do. This behavior served multiple purposes in feline care, stimulating circulation, keeping the fur clean, and providing comfort and bonding. That Ghost was instinctively providing this care to a wild animal he'd never met was extraordinary. "Your cat is doing something I've never seen before," Kumar said quietly. "He's essentially fostering this kit. The grooming, the warmth, the purring, these are all maternal behaviors. Male cats typically don't show this level of nurturing, especially toward unrelated young." Rachel watched Ghost with a mixture of pride and wonder. "He's always been different. When I volunteer at the animal shelter, he seems to know when I've been around stressed or injured animals. He'll spend hours grooming me when I get home, like he's trying to comfort me through scent marking and care." The kitten had finished about a third of the bottle when its eyes began to close again, its tiny body sinking back into sleep. Kumar carefully withdrew the bottle. "That's enough for now. Overfeeding after severe dehydration can cause complications. We'll need to try again in 2 hours." He stood up, his knees cracking slightly from kneeling. "Rachel, I need to ask something unusual of you. Would you be willing to serve as a temporary foster for this kit until the mother is stable enough for reunification?" Rachel felt her heart skip. Foster a wild bobcat? Is that even legal? Under emergency circumstances with proper permits and supervision, yes. The kit needs constant care, warmth, feeding every 2 hours around the clock, and monitoring. The rehabilitation facility in Golden is at capacity right now with 3 injured eagles, 2 black bears, and a mountain lion. Their staff is stretched thin. If your cat continues providing this level of care, and you're willing to help with feeding and monitoring, this kit might have the best chance right here. Before Rachel could fully process what she was agreeing to, she found herself nodding. Yes, of course. Whatever it needs. Just tell me what to do. Kumar pulled out his phone and began making notes. I'll need to file emergency fostering papers and get them approved by my supervisor. You'll need to keep detailed records of feeding times, amounts consumed, and any changes in the kit's behavior or condition. I'll be checking in every 6 hours initially. He looked at Ghost, who had resumed his protective curl around the sleeping kitten. And we'll need to monitor their interaction carefully. Even with your cat's unusual behavior, we can't assume a wild animal won't react unpredictably as it gains strength. The sound of a vehicle pulling away drew their attention. Through the bedroom window, Rachel could see the Wildlife Services truck disappearing down the street, carrying the mother bobcat toward an uncertain fate. She felt a weight settle onto her shoulders, the responsibility of the tiny life now depending on her care. Kumar must have sensed her anxiety because his next words were gentle but firm. You're not alone in this. I'm a phone call away, 24/7. Dr. Chen will be monitoring the mother's condition and will coordinate care between both animals. The facility has some of the best wildlife veterinarians in the state. If anyone can save that bobcat, they can. Rachel knelt back down beside Ghost and the kitten, her hand reaching out to gently stroke her cat's white fur. Ghost purred louder as if acknowledging her presence and accepting her as a partner in this unexpected guardianship. The kitten, warm and fed and protected, slept peacefully in the curve of Ghost's body, its spotted fur rising and falling with steady breaths. Officer Kumar began gathering his equipment but paused at the doorway. Rachel, what you and your cat are doing here, it matters. Every life saved contributes to the larger ecosystem. Bobcats are crucial predators in the Colorado wilderness. They control rodent populations, maintain balance in the food chain, and serve as indicators of environmental health. This mother was desperate enough to leave the safety of the wilderness and approach human habitation. That tells me she understood on some level that her kit needed help she couldn't provide alone. After Kumar left with promises to return in 6 hours, Rachel sat on her bedroom floor beside Ghost and their unexpected charge. The morning that had started so ordinarily had transformed into something extraordinary. At the Rocky Mountain Wildlife Rehabilitation Center in Golden, Dr. Chen worked alongside Dr. Patricia Alvarez, the facility's lead wildlife veterinarian, in an operating room designed specifically for treating wild animals. The mother bobcat lay unconscious on the surgical table, her spotted coat shaved around the wound to reveal the full extent of the damage. Patricia had been at this work for 20 years, and her experienced eyes took in every detail as she prepared for surgery. This is definitely a mountain lion attack, Patricia said, examining the wound pattern under bright surgical lights. See these claw marks? The spacing and depth are consistent with a large male cougar. She probably had a territory dispute, and with a dependent kit, she couldn't afford to fight back effectively. Her maternal instincts would have been to flee and protect the baby rather than engage. Dr. Chen monitored the anesthesia levels, watching the screens that displayed the bobcat's vital signs. Her oxygen saturation is holding steady at 92% and her heart rate is stabilizing. The IV fluids made a significant difference, but these lacerations are deep. There's muscle damage that'll need careful repair. Patricia began the delicate process of cleaning and debriding the wound, removing damaged tissue that could lead to infection. Wildlife surgery presented unique challenges compared to domestic animals. Wild creatures had not been bred for docility or resilience to human handling. Their bodies responded to stress differently, and their recovery required a careful balance between necessary medical intervention and minimal contact that might cause psychological trauma. "I heard about the unusual circumstances of her rescue," Patricia said as she worked, her hands steady and precise. "She showed up at a suburban house with her kit. That's extraordinary territorial desperation. Bobcats typically avoid human proximity at all costs. The homeowner said the bobcat collapsed right at her door," Dr. Chen confirmed. "And here's the really unusual part. The woman's albino cat has essentially adopted the kit. When I left, the house cat was grooming and warming the baby. Officer Kumar is setting up emergency fostering arrangements." Patricia looked up from her work, surprise evident even through her surgical mask. An albino domestic cat fostering a wild bobcat kit. I've seen cross-species nurturing before, but never quite that combination. If the kit accepts the care and the domestic cat maintains the behavior, it could be crucial for the kit's survival during the mother's recovery. She returned her attention to the surgery, beginning the meticulous process of suturing damaged muscle tissue. The question is whether this mother will pull through. She's lost a significant amount of blood, and wild animals don't always respond well to the stress of captivity, even temporary medical captivity. The surgery took nearly 2 hours. Patricia repaired the damaged shoulder muscles, closed the deep lacerations in layers to promote proper healing, and inserted a drain to prevent fluid accumulation. Throughout the procedure, Dr. Chen maintained careful watch over the anesthesia and vital signs, making minute adjustments as needed to keep the bobcat stable but safely unconscious. When the final sutures were in place, Patricia stepped back and surveyed her work. The surgery itself was successful. The shoulder should heal completely with proper care and time, but the real challenge begins now. Wild cats, especially mothers separated from their young, can become severely stressed in captivity. The stress alone can compromise healing and even prove fatal. "How long before she can be reunified with her kit?" Dr. Chen asked, already thinking of the tiny creature depending on a domestic cat and a nervous homeowner for survival. "If there are no complications, and that's a significant if, maybe 72 hours minimum. She needs to be alert enough to care for the kit without risk of accidentally injuring it, and her wound needs to show clear signs of healing without infection." Patricia began removing her surgical gloves. "In the meantime, that kit's survival depends entirely on the fostering situation you've described. Kits this young typically nurse every 2 to 3 hours and require constant warmth and stimulation. Without proper care, they can fade quickly." Back in Boulder, Rachel had transformed her bedroom into a makeshift bobcat nursery. She'd set up a heating pad on low, covered with towels to create a warm sleeping area. Officer Kumar had provided detailed instructions before leaving, and Rachel had written everything down with the meticulous attention to detail that her graphic design background had instilled in her. Feeding schedule, check. Monitoring for signs of distress, check. Emergency contact numbers, check. Ghost had not left the kitten's side except for brief trips to his food bowl and litter box. Even then, he moved with obvious reluctance, hurrying back to resume his self-appointed guardian duties. Rachel watched her cat with a mixture of amazement and gratitude. She'd always known Ghost was special, but this level of nurturing instinct seemed to transcend normal feline behavior. The kitten had awakened once more since Officer Kumar's departure, and Rachel had successfully administered another feeding. This time, the kit had taken nearly half the bottle, its sucking reflex growing stronger with each attempt. After feeding, Rachel had followed Kumar's instructions on stimulating the kitten to urinate and defecate, using a warm, damp cloth to mimic a mother's grooming. The process felt intimate and slightly overwhelming, this tiny wild creature depending entirely on her inexperienced care. Rachel's phone buzzed with a text message from Dr. Chen. "Surgery successful. Mother stable but critical. We'll update in 6 hours. How's the kit?" Rachel typed back quickly. Kit took half bottle this last feeding. Ghost hasn't left its side. Kitten seems stronger. She attached a photo of Ghost curled around the sleeping Kit, the contrast between Ghost's pure white fur and the Kit's spotted coat striking in the afternoon sunlight that now filled her bedroom. The response came quickly. "That photo is remarkable. You're doing great. Keep up the feeding schedule. Any changes, call immediately." The afternoon stretched into evening as Rachel settled into the demanding routine of caring for a wild infant. Every 2 hours, she would carefully wake the sleeping Kit, offer the bottle, perform the necessary stimulation for elimination, and then watch as Ghost immediately resumed his grooming and warming duties. Between feedings, Rachel tried to work on her graphic design projects but found her attention constantly drawn back to the bedroom, where her cat stood guard over his unlikely charge. As darkness fell, Rachel made a nest of blankets on the floor beside the heating pad where Ghost and the kitten slept. She couldn't bring herself to leave them alone, not on this first crucial night. She'd already called her 2 active clients and explained she needed to reschedule their meetings due to a family emergency. It wasn't exactly a lie, she thought, watching Ghost gently lick the kitten's ears. This had become a matter of family, however unconventional that family might be. Her phone rang at 8:30, Officer Kumar's name appearing on the screen. "Just checking in on our patient. How's the Kit doing?" Rachel gave him a detailed report, covering feeding amounts, elimination patterns, and activity levels. She also described Ghost's continued devoted care. Kumar listened carefully, occasionally asking clarifying questions that revealed his expertise and genuine concern. "Your attention to detail is excellent. Everything you're describing sounds positive. The Kit is responding to care, accepting food, and your cat's nurturing behavior is providing crucial comfort and warmth. Keep doing exactly what you're doing." "Have you heard anything about the mother?" Rachel asked, voicing the concern that had been building all day. "I spoke with Dr. Alvarez an hour ago. The surgery went well and the mother is recovering from anesthesia. They're keeping her sedated to minimize stress, but her vital signs are stable. The next 48 hours will be critical. If she develops an infection or her body rejects the stress of captivity, things could deteriorate quickly. But right now, cautiously optimistic is the best description." Rachel woke to the sound of Tiny mewing at 2 in the morning. She'd managed barely 3 hours of sleep, curled uncomfortably on the floor in her makeshift bed. Ghost was already alert, his pink eyes luminous in the darkness, looking at Rachel as if to say their charge needed attention. She pushed herself up, her back protesting the awkward sleeping position, and reached for the bottle she'd prepared and kept warm in an insulated container. The kitten was more active than it had been during previous feedings, its small paws kneading against Ghost's fur in the instinctive motion that would normally stimulate a mother's milk flow. In the dim glow of the nightlight Rachel had plugged in, she could see the kit's eyes were brighter, more focused. This was progress, tangible and encouraging progress. "Come here, little one," Rachel whispered, carefully lifting the kitten and cradling it in one hand. The kit was so small, weighing perhaps 12 ounces, its body fitting easily in her palm. She offered the bottle, and this time the kitten latched on immediately, suckling with a vigor that had been absent in earlier feedings. Hope bloomed in Rachel's chest as she watched the tiny creature consume nearly 3/4 of the formula. Ghost had risen and positioned himself against Rachel's leg, his purring creating a constant rumble that seemed to soothe both Rachel and the kit. After the feeding, Rachel performed the necessary grooming stimulation and was rewarded with healthy elimination. These basic biological functions, easy to take for granted, were crucial indicators that the kitten's body was recovering from its ordeal. As she settled the kit back into the warm nest beside Ghost, Rachel allowed herself to wonder about the mother Bobcat. Was she awake? Was she in pain? Did she somehow sense that her baby was alive and being cared for, Or was she experiencing the desperate anguish of separation that any mother would feel? Rachel had never considered herself particularly maternal, had never felt the pull toward having children that many of her friends described. But caring for this fragile wild creature was awakening something protective and fierce within her. The pattern continued through the night. Every 2 hours, Rachel would wake, feed the kit, monitor its condition, and document everything in the detailed log Officer Kumar had instructed her to keep. By the time dawn light began filtering through her bedroom window, Rachel felt simultaneously exhausted and exhilarated. The kitten had survived the night, growing noticeably stronger with each feeding. Ghost had maintained his vigil without complaint, only occasionally leaving his post to eat or use his litter box before hurrying back to his adopted charge. At 7 in the morning, Rachel's doorbell rang. She padded to the door in her pajamas, knowing it would be Officer Kumar arriving for his promised check-in. When she opened the door, she found both Kumar and Dr. Chen standing on her porch, both men looking tired but alert. "Morning, Rachel," Dr. Chen said with a warm smile. "Officer Kumar picked me up on his way over. I wanted to see how both of our patients are doing. The mother made it through the night successfully, which is an excellent sign. Her wound is showing no signs of infection, and she's tolerating the antibiotics well." The relief Rachel felt was immediate and overwhelming. She realized she'd been carrying a tension she hadn't fully acknowledged, the fear that this kitten might lose its mother despite everyone's best efforts. "That's wonderful news. Come in, please. The kid is doing remarkably well." The two men followed Rachel to the bedroom where Ghost still maintained his protective position around the sleeping kitten. Dr. Chen knelt down to examine the kit, his movements gentle and professional. He checked the kitten's hydration by gently pinching the skin, examined its gums for color, and listened to its heart with a small stethoscope he'd pulled from his bag. "This is exceptional progress," Dr. Chen announced, sitting back on his heels. "The kid is well hydrated, body temperature is normal, and muscle tone is good. Rachel, your care has been exemplary, and your cat," he looked at Ghost with undisguised amazement, "is providing better fostering than many professional rehabilitation setups could manage. The constant warmth, the grooming, the comfort, these are all crucial factors in a young animal's development and stress reduction." Officer Kumar was taking photos with his phone, documenting the unusual fostering situation. "My supervisor wants a full report. This is going to become a case study at the regional office. Cross-species fostering is rare enough, but the specific circumstances, a domestic cat adopting a wild predator kit, that's unprecedented in our district's records." "When can the mother and kit be reunited?" Rachel asked, the question that had been foremost in her mind since the rescue began. Dr. Chen exchanged a glance with Officer Kumar before answering. "Dr. Alvarez wants to keep the mother under observation for another 48 hours minimum. She's healing well, but the stress of the attack, the blood loss, and now the surgery, her body has been through significant trauma. We need to ensure she's strong enough not only to care for the kit, but to avoid accidentally injuring it during nursing or grooming. A wild animal in pain can react unpredictably." Kumar added, "We're also concerned about the reunion itself. Sometimes when mothers have been separated from their young during a critical period, especially if the young have been handled extensively by humans, they reject them. The kit now carries your scent and Ghost's scent. The mother might not recognize it as her own." Rachel felt her stomach drop. What happens if she rejects the kitten? The words came out barely above a whisper. The two men looked at each other, and in that look, Rachel saw the weight of difficult truths they dealt with regularly in their work. "Then the kit becomes a permanent foster situation," Kumar said gently. "It could never be released into the wild without maternal teaching. It would need to live in captivity, either at the rehabilitation center or potentially in a licensed educational program. Some zoos and nature centers have programs for animals that can't be released." Dr. Chen placed a reassuring hand on Rachel's shoulder. Let's not borrow trouble. The mother fought incredibly hard to get her kit to safety. That level of maternal instinct doesn't disappear easily. We'll do everything possible to facilitate a successful reunion. When the time comes, we'll use scent transfer techniques, gradually reintroduce the mother's scent to the kit, and vice versa. We've had success with this before. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of continued care and monitoring. Officer Kumar stayed for several hours, observing the feeding routine and taking detailed notes. He seemed particularly fascinated by Ghost's behavior, the way the white cat would groom the kit with slow, methodical strokes, the way he positioned his body to provide maximum warmth, the way he seemed to sense when the kitten was about to wake and needed attention. "Your cat has a remarkable temperament," Kumar observed as they watched Ghost gently nuzzle the stirring kitten. Most domestic cats would either be terrified of or aggressive toward a wild feline, even a baby. Ghost seems to have recognized a creature in need and responded with pure compassion. It's actually quite moving to witness. By the second day of fostering, Rachel had fallen into a rhythm with the demanding care schedule. Her friend Jessica had stopped by with groceries and coffee, taking one look at Rachel's exhausted face and immediately offering to help. Jessica, a veterinary technician at a local animal clinic, had experience with neonatal animal care and proved invaluable in giving Rachel breaks between feedings. "This is absolutely wild," Jessica said, as she watched Ghost perform his grooming ritual on the Bobcat kit. "I've worked with abandoned kittens, puppies, even a baby raccoon once, but I've never seen anything like this. Your cat is basically running a wildlife rehabilitation center out of your bedroom." Rachel managed a tired laugh, accepting the coffee Jessica had brought like it was liquid gold. "I haven't slept more than 2 hours at a stretch since this started. I don't know how Ghost does it. He never seems tired, never complains, just keeps caring for this little one like it's the most natural thing in the world." The kitten was noticeably stronger now, its eyes brighter and more alert. During feedings, it would make small chirping sounds and knead against Rachel's hand with increasing vigor. Its spotted coat, which had looked dull and lifeless when it first arrived, now showed a healthy sheen. The transformation in just 48 hours was remarkable. Jessica leaned closer to observe the kit. "You know, I've been thinking about the bond that's forming here. Ghost has essentially imprinted on this kit as his own. When the time comes for reunification with the mother, it might be difficult for both of them. Animals form attachments just like humans do, and breaking those attachments can be traumatic." Rachel had been trying not to think about that inevitable separation. In just 2 days, she'd grown deeply attached to the tiny creature whose survival had depended on her care. And Ghost, her beloved companion who had shared her life for 3 years, had invested everything into protecting and nurturing this wild baby. How would he react when the kitten was taken away? Her phone rang, interrupting her melancholy thoughts. Dr. Chen's name appeared on the screen, and Rachel answered immediately, her heart already racing with anticipation of news about the mother Bobcat. "Rachel, I have an update. The mother is doing remarkably well. Better than we hoped, actually. Her wound is healing cleanly, she's eating, and her strength is returning. Dr. Alvarez believes we can attempt reunification tomorrow morning if the kit continues showing good health." Tomorrow. The word felt both too soon and not soon enough. That's wonderful news. The kit is thriving. Eating well, eliminating normally, gaining weight. She's much more active and alert. Excellent. Here's what will happen. Officer Martinez will come to collect the kit tomorrow at 6 in the morning. We'll use scent transfer techniques throughout the day, gradually reintroducing the mother's scent to the kit and vice versa. Then tomorrow evening, if everything looks promising, we'll attempt the reunion in a controlled environment where we can intervene if necessary. Rachel's hand tightened on the phone. "What are the chances she'll accept the kit back?" Dr. Chen's pause was telling. Honestly, with wild animals, it's never certain. But this mother showed extraordinary determination to save her kit. She traveled miles through dangerous territory while severely injured, all to bring her baby to safety. That level of maternal instinct is a strong indicator. Plus, the kid is still very young. The scent transfer should help bridge the gap created by separation and human handling. After the call ended, Rachel shared the news with Jessica, who had been listening intently. Her friend's expression was a mixture of happiness and concern. "It's the right thing, Rach. That kit needs its mother to learn how to be a bobcat. But I know this is going to be hard on you and especially on Ghost." They spent the afternoon preparing for the separation. Officer Kumar had provided instructions for collecting items with the mother's scent, which would be brought tomorrow. In the meantime, Rachel tried to soak in every moment with the kit, watching as it played weakly with Ghost's tail, marveling at the trust the wild creature had developed toward both her albino cat and herself. That evening, as Rachel performed what might be one of the last feedings she would give, she found herself crying quietly. The kitten looked up at her with those blue eyes, so innocent and unaware of the complexity of its situation. Born wild, rescued by a domestic cat, and now caught between two worlds. She hoped desperately that the reunion would succeed, that this tiny creature would have the chance to live the wild life it was meant for. Ghost seemed to sense something was different. After Rachel placed the kit back in the warm nest, the white cat groomed it with extra attention, his rough tongue working methodically over every inch of the kit's fur. It was as if he was trying to memorize the shape and scent of this creature he devoted himself to protecting. Rachel's doorbell rang at 9 that evening. When she answered, she found Officer Martinez standing there with a small sealed container. The officer's expression was professional but kind. "This contains bedding material from the mother bobcat's recovery enclosure. Dr. Chen wanted you to place it near the kit tonight. Let them both become familiar with the scent before tomorrow's transport." Rachel accepted the container carefully. "How is she doing?" "The mother, I mean." Martinez smiled, strong and alert. "When Dr. Alvarez examined her this evening, the mother kept making vocalizations that we believe are calls for her kit. She knows her baby is missing and she's ready to have it back. That's as good a sign as we could hope for." After Martinez left, Rachel opened the container and removed a piece of soft fabric that smelled distinctly wild, a musky scent mixed with something sharp and feral. She placed it near where Ghost and the kit were sleeping. Ghost's reaction was immediate. His ears flattened slightly and his body tensed. He recognized this as the scent of a predator, of something potentially dangerous. But then he looked down at the sleeping kit, and something in his posture softened. He seemed to understand, on some instinctive level, that this scent belonged to the kitten's real mother. The kit stirred, its tiny nose twitching as it caught the unfamiliar, yet somehow familiar scent. Rachel watched, hardly breathing, as the kitten made small sounds and moved toward the scented fabric. Some primal recognition was taking place, a deep biological connection being rekindled despite days of separation. Rachel hardly slept that last night, alternating between feeding sessions and simply watching Ghost and the kit. She wanted to memorize every detail, the way Ghost's white fur contrasted with the kit's spotted coat, the soft sounds the kitten made while sleeping, the gentle rise and fall of both their breathing. At 3 in the morning, during what would be the final feeding she would give, Rachel whispered to the sleeping kit, "You probably won't remember any of this. You won't remember how a strange white cat saved your life, or how we all fought to keep you alive. But somewhere in your wild heart, I hope you carry some piece of this with you. The knowledge that when you needed help most, it came from the most unexpected place." Ghost looked up at her then, his pink eyes luminous in the dim light, and for a moment, Rachel felt certain he understood every word. They sat together in the quiet darkness, woman and cat keeping vigil over a wild creature that had somehow bridged the impossible gap between their worlds. Tomorrow would bring separation and hopefully reunion. But tonight, in these last precious hours, they were a family bound together by compassion and the universal instinct to protect the vulnerable. The dawn arrived too quickly. Rachel had just completed the 5 o'clock feeding when she heard the familiar sound of Officer Martinez's vehicle pulling up outside. She looked down at the kitten now nestled against Ghost's warm body and felt her throat tighten with emotion. This was it, the moment of separation they'd all been preparing for, but none of them truly wanted to face. Ghost sensed the change in Rachel's demeanor. His ears swiveled toward the sound of footsteps approaching the front door, and his body curved more protectively around the kit. When the doorbell rang, the white cat's pink eyes met Rachel's with an expression that seemed almost pleading. "Don't take this away from me. I'm not done caring for this little one yet." Rachel opened the door to find not just Officer Martinez, but also Dr. Chen and Dr. Alvarez. The lead veterinarian from the rehabilitation center had made the trip personally, a testament to how invested everyone had become in this unusual case. Dr. Alvarez was a woman in her late 40s with kind eyes and capable hands that had saved countless wild creatures over her career. "Good morning, Rachel," Dr. Alvarez said warmly. "I wanted to be here personally for this transition. What you and your cat have accomplished is truly remarkable." She glanced past Rachel toward the bedroom. "How's our little patient this morning? Strong and active?" "She took almost a full bottle at the last feeding," Rachel reported, her voice catching slightly on the words. "Ghost has been amazing. I don't think I could have managed this without him." The group moved to the bedroom where Ghost remained with the kitten. Dr. Alvarez knelt down slowly, her movements deliberate and non-threatening. She pulled out a small medical kit and began examining the kit while Ghost watched her intently, his body language showing wariness but not aggression. "Weight gain is excellent," Dr. Alvarez murmured, gently palpating the kit's small body. "Hydration levels perfect, muscle tone strong, coat condition healthy." She looked up at Rachel with genuine admiration. "You've provided textbook neonatal care. This kit is in better condition than many I see at the rehabilitation center with professional staff." Officer Martinez had been recording the examination with her camera, documenting every aspect for the official report. The scent transfer appears to have been effective as well. The kit showed recognition of the mother's scent last night when we introduced the bedding material. Dr. Chen stepped forward with a specialized carrier designed for transporting young wildlife. It was lined with soft material that already carried the mother bobcat's scent. "The reunion will happen in stages. First, we'll place the kit in an adjacent enclosure where the mother can see, hear, and smell her baby but can't physically interact. This allows us to gauge her reaction before full contact." Rachel felt her heart racing as Dr. Alvarez carefully lifted the kitten. Ghost immediately stood up, his body tense, following the kit's movement with laser focus. When Dr. Alvarez placed the kitten in the carrier, Ghost made a sound Rachel had never heard from him before, a low, mournful cry that seemed to come from somewhere deep in his chest. "Oh, Ghost," Rachel whispered, kneeling beside her cat and gathering him into her arms. He struggled against her embrace, trying to get to the carrier where the kit was already mewing in distress at being separated from its surrogate parent. Tears streamed down Rachel's face as she held her cat, feeling his heart pounding against her hands. "You did so good, baby. You saved that little one's life, but now it needs its real mama." Dr. Chen crouched down beside them, his own expression showing the emotional weight of the moment. "Ghost has formed a genuine bond with this kit. He's experiencing real distress at the separation." He pulled out a small container from his bag. "Rachel, I want you to keep this bedding that has the kit's scent on it. Let Ghost have access to it. It might help him process the loss." The kit's crying intensified from inside the carrier, and Ghost's struggles became more desperate. Dr. Alvarez made a decision quickly. We need to move now. Prolonging this is causing unnecessary stress to both animals. Rachel, you and Ghost have given this kit the gift of life. Now we need to give it the gift of returning to its wild nature. The words were meant to comfort, but they felt hollow against the reality of Ghost's distress and Rachel's grief. As the team moved toward the door with the carrier, Ghost finally broke free from Rachel's arms and bolted after them. He positioned himself between the humans and the front door, his white body blocking their path, his usual gentle nature giving way to something fierce and protective. "Ghost, no," Rachel called, but her cat stood his ground. Officer Martinez looked to Rachel for guidance, clearly not wanting to forcibly remove the cat from the situation, but knowing they needed to proceed with the transport. Rachel approached Ghost slowly, speaking in the calm voice she'd always used with him. "Ghost, my sweet boy, I know this hurts. I know you don't understand why we're taking your baby away. But that little one needs its real mother. It needs to learn how to be wild, how to hunt, how to survive in the forest. We can't teach it those things, only its mother can." Ghost looked up at her, and Rachel swore she saw tears in those pink eyes. She gently scooped him up, holding him tightly as Dr. Chen opened the front door. As the team carried the kid outside, Ghost watched over Rachel's shoulder, his body trembling, his cries echoing through the house. "I'll stay with you," Dr. Chen said quietly to Rachel as Martinez and Alvarez loaded the kit into their vehicle. "You shouldn't be alone right now, and frankly, Ghost is going to need monitoring. Animals can experience grief and depression just like humans can. The next few hours will be critical for his emotional well-being." Rachel nodded numbly, carrying Ghost back inside as the vehicle pulled away. The house suddenly felt enormous and empty, despite being exactly the same size it had been 3 days ago. Ghost struggled free from her arms and ran directly to the bedroom, to the spot where the heating pad and towels still held the lingering scent of the kit he'd devoted himself to protecting. The white cat circled the empty nest 3 times, crying that same mournful sound with each circuit. Then he lay down in the exact spot where the kit had slept, curling his body around the absence, and continued to cry. Rachel sat down on the floor beside him, her own tears falling freely now, and placed the container with the kit's scent where Ghost could access it. Dr. Chen settled onto the floor with them, his professional demeanor softened by genuine compassion. "I've worked with animals for most of my adult life, and I still find these moments difficult." Ghost formed a genuine parental bond with that kit. His brain released the same hormones and neurotransmitters that drive maternal behavior. What he's experiencing right now is real grief. "Will he be okay?" Rachel asked through her tears, stroking Ghost's trembling body. "With time and attention, yes. Animals are remarkably resilient, but they need support to process loss just like we do. Keep him close, maintain his routine as much as possible, give him access to that scent container, and most importantly, don't minimize what he's experiencing. His feelings are valid and real." At the Rocky Mountain Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, Dr. Alvarez and Officer Martinez were preparing for the most critical phase of the rescue operation. The reunion between mother and kit would determine whether the past 3 days of intensive care had truly saved the Bobcat family or had simply delayed an inevitable tragedy. In a specially designed observation room, the mother Bobcat paced restlessly in her recovery enclosure, her surgical wound healing well, but her agitation clearly visible. "She knows," Dr. Alvarez said to Martinez as they watched through the one-way glass. "She's been increasingly restless since dawn. Somehow she senses her kit is near." The maternal bond in wild felines is incredibly strong, even stronger than most people realize. The kit had been placed in an adjacent enclosure separated from the mother by a transparent barrier that allowed visual and olfactory contact but prevented physical interaction. This cautious approach protected both animals. If the mother showed signs of rejection or aggression, They could intervene before any harm occurred. If she showed recognition and acceptance, they could proceed to full reunion. Officer Martinez activated the recording equipment that would document every moment of the reunion for both the official record and potential use in wildlife education programs. This is unprecedented in our district. A wild bobcat mother separated from her kit for 3 days after severe trauma, with the kit being fostered by a domestic cat. The variables here are off any standard chart. As they watched, the mother bobcat suddenly froze, her body going rigid. Her head turned sharply toward the adjacent enclosure where her kit had just been placed. The baby bobcat, confused by yet another change in its environment and missing the warmth and comfort of Ghost's presence, began to cry. The sound was thin and plaintive, the universal call of a young creature seeking its parent. The mother's reaction was immediate and dramatic. She rushed to the barrier separating her from her kit, her front paws pressing against the transparent surface, her vocalizations changing from the aggressive territorial sounds she'd been making to something entirely different. These were the specific chirps and trills that mother bobcats use to communicate with their young, sounds that Rachel and Ghost had never been able to replicate despite their devoted care. "Look at her body language," Dr. Alvarez said with growing excitement. Ears forward, pupils dilated but not in aggression, that specific tail position. She's recognizing her kit. There's no rejection behavior at all. She turned to her assistant, who was monitoring both animals' vital signs. "What are the readings showing?" Mother's heart rate elevated, but not in a stress pattern. It's excitement, anticipation. The kit's vitals are stabilizing now that it can see the mother. This is looking very promising. Dr. Alvarez made the decision. Open the barrier, but be ready to close it immediately if we see any signs of aggression or rejection. This is the moment that would define the success or failure of the entire rescue operation. The barrier lifted with a soft, mechanical hum. For a breathless moment, mother and kit simply stared at each other across the 3 feet of space that separated them. Then the kit, driven by instincts millions of years old, stumbled forward on unsteady legs. The mother bobcat moved with surprising gentleness given her normally fierce nature, meeting her baby halfway. What happened next made everyone in the observation room fall silent with awe. The mother bobcat began grooming her kit with intense focus, her rough tongue working over every inch of the baby's body. She was doing more than cleaning. She was re-establishing scent, reclaiming her offspring, erasing the traces of human and domestic cat that clung to the kit's fur. The baby responded by nuzzling against its mother's chest, searching instinctively for the source of milk it had been denied for 3 days. The mother lay down carefully, mindful of her healing wound, and positioned herself so the kit could nurse. Within seconds, the baby was feeding, its small paws kneading against its mother's belly in contentment. The mother continued her grooming between bouts of her own purring, a sound deeper and more primal than Ghost's domestic version, but serving the same purpose of comfort and bonding. Dr. Alvarez wiped her eyes unself-consciously. In 20 years of wildlife rehabilitation, this is one of the most beautiful things I've witnessed. Against all odds, this family is whole again. She pulled out her phone. "I need to call Rachel immediately. She and her cat deserve to know their efforts succeeded." Back in Boulder, Rachel was lying on her bedroom floor beside Ghost when her phone rang. The white cat had finally stopped crying, exhausted from his grief, but he remained curled around the empty nest, occasionally sniffing the scent container Dr. Chen had left. When Rachel saw Dr. Alvarez's name on her screen, her heart leaped into her throat. "Rachel, I have news." Dr. Alvarez's voice was warm with emotion. The reunion was successful. Better than successful. It was perfect. The mother accepted her kit immediately. No hesitation, no rejection. They're nursing right now, and the bond is as strong as if they'd never been separated. Rachel felt a sob of relief escape her throat. Oh, thank God. Thank God. She looked down at Ghost, who had lifted his head at the sound of her emotional response. "Ghost, she did it." The mama took her baby back. "Your baby is going to be okay," Dr. Alvarez continued. "Rachel, I want you to understand what you and Ghost accomplished. That kit would have died without your intervention. The mother would have grieved herself into a dangerous decline if her baby hadn't survived. You saved 2 lives, not 1, and you did it with a level of dedication and compassion that professionals can only aspire to." "When can they go back to the wild?" Rachel asked, stroking Ghost's head as he listened to her voice. "The mother needs another week of recovery and observation to ensure the wound has healed sufficiently. Then we'll release them together in a carefully selected territory, far from the mountain lion that attacked her." She paused. "Rachel, would you and Ghost like to be present for the release? You're part of their story. You deserve to see how it ends." The release took place the following week in a protected area of the Roosevelt National Forest. Rachel arrived at dawn with Ghost in his carrier, joined by Dr. Chen, Dr. Alvarez, Officers Martinez and Kumar, and a small documentary crew from Colorado Wildlife Television that had heard about the rescue and wanted to capture the story. Ghost had spent the week in a subdued state, eating less than usual and spending long hours sleeping in the nest where he'd cared for the kit. But as Rachel carried his carrier toward the release site, she noticed a change in his demeanor. His ears were up, his pink eyes alert. Somehow he seemed to sense that something significant was about to happen. The mother Bobcat and her kit were in a large transport carrier designed for safe wildlife release. The kit had grown noticeably in just a week, its legs stronger, its movements more coordinated. But what struck Rachel most was how wild it looked. In just 7 days back with its mother, the kitten had transformed from the fragile creature that had depended on her care into something unmistakably feral and independent. Dr. Alvarez approached Rachel with a warm smile, gesturing toward the carrier where Ghost sat watching the proceedings with unusual intensity. "Would you like to let Ghost out so he can see the release? Obviously, we'll keep him close and secure, but I think he deserves to witness this moment. After all, without him, none of this would have been possible." Rachel carefully opened Ghost's carrier door. The white cat emerged slowly, his movements cautious as he took in the unfamiliar forest environment. His pink eyes scanned the area until they locked onto the large transport carrier where the mother and kit waited. Ghost's entire body tensed, his ears swiveling forward, and he made a soft chirping sound that Rachel recognized as the greeting call he'd used with the kit during those 3 intensive days of fostering. From inside the carrier, an answering sound came. The kit had heard Ghost's voice and remembered. Despite a week of rebonding with its biological mother, despite the return of its wild instincts, some part of the baby Bobcat still recognized the white cat who had saved its life. The mother Bobcat also reacted to Ghost's presence, but her response was measured and calm rather than aggressive. It was as if she too understood on some primal level that this strange, pale creature meant her family no harm. Officer Martinez positioned herself near the carrier's release mechanism, while Officer Kumar stood ready with monitoring equipment that would track the Bobcats after release. Everyone present understood they were witnessing something extraordinary, not just the return of 2 wild animals to their natural habitat, but the conclusion of a story that had challenged everything they thought they knew about the boundaries between wild and domestic, between different species, and between instinct and compassion. Dr. Alvarez gave the signal, and Martinez pulled the release lever. The carrier door swung open, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then the mother Bobcat emerged, moving with fluid grace despite her recent trauma. She paused at the edge of the forest, scanning the environment with the wariness of a predator, assessing potential threats and opportunities. Her kit tumbled out after her, less coordinated but full of energy, and immediately pressed against its mother's side. The mother looked back once, her golden eyes sweeping across the gathered humans before settling briefly on Ghost. In that gaze, Rachel saw something that transcended species and wildness. It was acknowledgement, perhaps even gratitude, though she knew scientists would caution against anthropomorphizing animal behavior. But Rachel had learned over the past 10 days that the emotional lives of animals were far richer and more complex than most people imagined. Ghost took 3 steps forward, his body language showing he wanted to approach the kit one last time. Rachel moved to intercept him, worried about how the mother might react, but Dr. Alvarez held up a hand to stop her. "Wait, let's see what happens." The white cat moved closer, and the kit, recognizing its foster parent, began to move toward Ghost. The mother bobcat watched this interaction carefully but made no move to prevent it. Ghost and the kit touched noses briefly, a gesture of feline greeting and farewell. Ghost then did something remarkable. He began grooming the kit one final time, his tongue working over the baby's head and ears in the same pattern he'd used during those critical first days. The mother bobcat made a soft sound, and the kit immediately returned to her side. She picked up her baby by the scruff of the neck, the way Ghost had carried it into Rachel's house that first desperate morning, and began walking into the forest. Within seconds, both bobcats had vanished into the undergrowth, leaving only the slight movement of ferns to mark their passage. Ghost sat down where he was, watching the spot where the kit had disappeared. He made no sound, no cry of distress like he had when they'd first been separated. Instead, he simply watched, as if committing this final moment to memory. Then he turned and walked calmly back to Rachel, rubbing against her legs in the familiar gesture of affection and trust. Rachel scooped him up, burying her face in his white fur. "You did it, Ghost. You saved that baby's life and brought it back to where it belongs. I'm so proud of you." Her voice broke with emotion, and she felt Ghost purr against her chest, not the desperate therapeutic purring he'd used to comfort the kit, but his normal, contented rumble. The documentary crew approached Rachel, asking if they could interview her about the experience. As she spoke, sharing the story of how Ghost had recognized the desperate mother's plea for help, how he'd provided perfect fostering care, how he'd grieved the separation and found closure in this final goodbye, Rachel realized that what had happened transcended a simple wildlife rescue. It was a story about the incredible capacity for compassion that existed across all species. It was about how the barriers humans constructed between wild and domestic, between us and them, were far more permeable than anyone had imagined. It was about a white cat with pink eyes who most people had considered strange or even unlucky, proving that difference and uniqueness could be sources of extraordinary strength rather than weakness. 3 months later, Rachel received a call from Officer Kumar. Trail cameras in the release area had captured footage of the mother bobcat teaching her kit to hunt. The kit was thriving, growing into a healthy young bobcat with all the skills it would need to survive in the wild. The mother's wound had healed completely, leaving only a faint scar hidden beneath her fur as evidence of the trauma she'd endured. But most remarkably, Kumar told Rachel, the camera had captured something unexpected. The mother and kit had been photographed near a residential area at the edge of the forest, and the kit had approached to investigate a white outdoor cat sitting on someone's deck. The domestic cat had hissed and retreated, as would be expected, but the young bobcat had simply sat and watched the white cat for several minutes before its mother called it back into the forest. It remembered, Kumar said with wonder in his voice. Some part of that kit still carries the memory of Ghost. It recognized the color, the presence, maybe even understood on some level what that white cat had meant to its survival. Rachel shared this news with Ghost, who was curled in his favorite sunny spot by the window. The white cat opened one pink eye, regarded her calmly, and went back to sleep. But Rachel could have sworn she saw satisfaction in that brief glance, as if Ghost knew exactly what he'd accomplished and was content with how the story had ended. The experience had changed Rachel too. She discovered reserves of strength and compassion within herself she hadn't known existed. She'd learned that sometimes the most meaningful connections happened in the most unexpected circumstances, and that opening your door to help someone in need, even when it was difficult or frightening, could lead to moments of profound grace. Ghost stories spread through social media and news outlets, inspiring others to look at the world with more compassionate eyes. The image of a white albino cat curled protectively around a wild bobcat kit became a symbol of hope, a reminder that in a world often divided by differences, the instinct to nurture and protect the vulnerable could bridge any divide. And on quiet mornings, when Rachel sat with her coffee and Ghost lounged beside her in the sunshine, she would sometimes catch him staring out the window toward the forest in the distance. And she wondered if he was thinking about the spotted kit he'd saved, now running wild and free where it belonged.